The hunt. 6 high school friends, Sarah, Mike, Jess, Ryan, Emily, and Tyler, were driving to the mountains for a fun weekend of camping and hiking. The group of teens, who all grew up together in the suburbs, looked forward to escaping the city and getting back to nature for a couple days. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, applying a fresh coat of lip gloss as her boyfriend Mike drove. She tossed her long blonde hair and batted her striking green eyes at him flirtatiously. Though Sarah could be self-absorbed at times, deep down she had a heart of gold and would do anything for her friends. Mike gripped the steering wheel with one hand and reached over to hold Sarah's hand with the other. With his strong jawline, piercing blue eyes, and athletic build, Mike was the stereotypical all-American jock. But behind his tough exterior, Mike was a sensitive soul who wrote poetry in his free time. In the seat behind them, Jessica, a petite brunette, was texting away on her phone. Jess was the bubbly social butterfly of the group. She loved chatting with her friends, snapping pics for her Instagram followers, and staying on top of all the latest gossip. Though obsessed with her phone, Jess would drop everything in a heartbeat if a friend needed her. Ryan sat next to Jess, staring out the window. With his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal his muscular arms, Ryan looked like a rebel without a cause. But his brooding bad boy appearance hid the fact he was at the top of their graduating class. Ryan hoped to study engineering in college, though his blue-collar family struggled to understand his academic ambitions. In the back seat, Emily had her nose buried in a dog-eared paperback novel. Emily was the bookish introvert of the group, more comfortable in her literary world than the real one. She viewed life through the lens of the haunting love stories and mysteries she obsessively read. Emily dreamed of being a writer one day herself. Next to her, Tyler was nodding along to music playing through his headphones. Tyler was the artsy alternative kid who played guitar in a garage band. He hoped to move to the big city after graduation and make it as an indie musician. Tyler was shy and sensitive, but fiercely loyal to his friends who accepted him for who he was. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, the friends left the highway and turned onto a winding dirt road that led deep into the woods. Sarah shivered a bit to see the trees get thicker and block out the remaining daylight. "Are you sure you know where you're going?" she asked Mike nervously. "Yeah, I've got the directions right here. My buddy said there's a cleared spot just up ahead that's perfect for camping," Mike replied, cruising along slowly so he wouldn't miss the turnoff. After a few more miles, the trees opened up, revealing a small clearing with a ring of rocks for a campfire. Mike pulled the SUV in and parked. "Wow, nice spot," said Jess as she hopped out to help unload their gear. The teens pitched their 2 tents, rolled out their sleeping bags inside, and gathered firewood. As darkness fell, Mike got a roaring fire going while the others roasted hot dogs and made s'mores. Laughing and chatting around the flickering firelight, the friends felt at peace to be off the grid and away from the stress of cell phones and social media for a weekend. After a couple of hours, Sarah let out a big yawn. "I'm going to brush my teeth and head to bed," she said, giving Mike a peck on the cheek. "I'll be in soon, babe," Mike replied. One by one, the rest of teens turned in for the night until only Mike and Tyler were left sitting by the dying embers. Tyler tossed another log on the fire, sending sparks flying up into the vast night sky littered with stars. He took a swig from a flask of whiskey and passed it to Mike, who hesitated at first, but then tilted his head back for a big gulp. The boys stayed up chatting and bonding for another hour before the flask was emptied and their eyes grew heavy. After kicking dirt on the smoldering fire, Mike and Tyler stumbled off to their tent to join the rest of their slumbering friends. A few hours later, Tyler was jolted awake by the sound of screams and strange noises outside the tent. Heart racing, he scrambled to unzip the door flap and peered out, squinting in the moonlight. Loud whoops and hollering echoed from the woods surrounding their campsite. Tyler saw shadows moving quickly between the trees. "Guys, wake up," Tyler shouted. "There's someone out there." The rest of teens awoke in startled confusion. Ryan stumbled out of his tent first, asking, "What's going on?" Then the girls emerged from their tent, hugging themselves against the cold night air. Mike came out last, zipping up his jeans. "Did you guys hear that? I think there are people in the woods." More shrieking and laughter arose from the tree line. The teens huddled together in fear. "Let's get out of here," Jess yelled, her voice shrill with panic. The friends ran for Mike's SUV and piled in quickly. Mike turned the key, but the engine just sputtered and wheezed, refusing to start. "No, no, no, come on," he yelled, trying again desperately. But it was useless. They were stranded. Just then, a loud bang on the driver's side window made them all scream. A gruff, bearded face with a scraggly hat peered in at them. Dirt and scabs covered his skin. He smiled wickedly, revealing blackened, rotten teeth. "Hey there, pretty young thangs, why don't y'all come out and play with us?" he shouted with a gravelly laugh. More leering, sinister faces crowded behind him. The teens looked closer and saw the men were armed with axes, knives, and hunting rifles. "Go, go, go," Mike shouted, and the group abandoned the vehicle, making a run for the woods behind their camp. They could hear the menacing locals storming after them. An axe came whizzing through the air and struck a tree next to Jess's head. She ran faster, heart pounding. The friends continued crashing through the underbrush, trying to escape, when suddenly Sarah caught her foot on a root and went down hard, crying out in pain. "My ankle!" she screamed. "I can't run, you guys go ahead." Mike raced back to help her up. She limped badly, unable to put weight on her right leg. Their friends ran back to help too. "We've got to hide, quick," Emily said. She pointed to an old barn just visible in the trees up ahead. Helping support Sarah between them, the group made their way as fast as they could to the barn and slipped inside, shutting the doors behind them. They climbed up a ladder to the dark loft, huddling down low. Minutes later, they heard the killers enter the barn, laughing and whooping as they searched for the teens with flashlights. Mike put his finger to his lips, signaling for everyone to remain absolutely silent. Jess whimpered quietly, but Ryan squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. After what felt like an eternity, the heavy footsteps moved back out of the barn and the lights faded. Still, the group remained hidden in the dark, dusty loft for another hour just to be safe. Eventually, Mike looked over the ledge and saw the coast was clear. He helped lower Sarah down the ladder. The friends then quietly exited the barn, sticking close together and keeping to the shadows. The teens sneaked their way back through the woods to their campsite. By the first light of dawn, they had gathered their bags and supplies and were hiking as fast as possible along the dirt road back to Mike's SUV. They piled in breathlessly, saying a silent prayer of relief when the engine roared to life this time. As Mike peeled out, driving at breakneck speed back to the highway, the exhausted and terrified group finally felt able to talk about their horrific night in the woods. "Who were those freaks?" Jess asked, face still wet with tears. "I think they must have been some inbred hillbilly cannibal clan or something," offered Ryan. "I've heard of that kind of thing happening in remote mountain areas." Sarah shuddered. They were going to hunt us down and kill us for sport. The friends all looked at each other with grateful amazement that they managed to escape and survive the sinister night. After a few hours, Mike's SUV delivered them safely back to the edges of civilization and cell phone service. Though the teens agreed never to go camping in the mountains again, the shared trauma of their terrifying encounter in the woods would bind them together for life. As Mike turned onto the highway toward home, he glanced in the rearview mirror at the receding mountain ridge in the distance. For a split second between the trees, he thought he saw a dilapidated barn flanked by the abandoned remains of an old campsite. And just as quickly as it appeared, the vision was gone. Mike shook his head and focused on the road ahead. The teens drove on in muted shock, the sun rising on the first day of the rest of their lives. In the gloomy barn loft, moonlight flickered off the lifeless eyes of a dozen pale, ghostly faces. New prey was always hard to come by in these lonely woods, but the family would wait patiently for the next opportunity to arise. They had such fun games planned. The hunt was always on. The teens drove in exhausted silence for a long while, each replaying the horrific night over and over in their minds. Eventually, Emily spoke up softly from the back seat. "I can't stop thinking about those poor girls hanging in the barn," she said with a shudder. The rest of the group nodded grimly. When they had sneaked back through the woods to gather their belongings, they'd made the grim discovery of two young female bodies suspended from the rafters, hollow eyes staring. Those monsters must use the barn to store or torture any victims they capture, said Ryan. At least now the police can find them and bring them some justice, Sarah said, hopefully. Mike white-knuckled the steering wheel. Let's just hope we make it to the cops before they come hunting us down first. The friends fell quiet again, midpoint between the menacing mountain ridge fading behind them and the safety of the city still far ahead. After stopping once quickly for gas and switching drivers, the teens drove on, mile after mile, eager to put more distance between themselves and the backwoods killers. Ryan took over behind the wheel so Mike could try to get some rest. But every time Mike closed his eyes, he saw malevolent faces leering from the darkness. Jess stared desperately at her phone screen, willing it to show even one precious bar of service. "Anything yet?" whispered Emily. "No, still no signal," Jess said miserably. She just wanted to call her mom and dad and hear their comforting voices again. Up ahead, the first faint glow of the outskirts of the city finally became visible on the horizon. "Oh, thank God," breathed Sarah. It seemed they were finally out of the woods in every way. But before the relieved teens could celebrate their impending return to civilization, Ryan spotted something in the rearview mirror. "Guys," he said nervously, "I think there's a truck following us." Jess and Emily turned to look back through the tinted window. Sure enough, a big rusted pickup truck was trailing behind their SUV at a distance. As they watched, the truck sped up, closing the gap. Mike's eyes shot open when he heard the rumbling engine grow louder. He turned too and his stomach dropped. "Faster, Ryan, step on it," he yelled. Ryan's foot pressed the gas pedal down hard as the SUV surged ahead. But incredibly, the old truck continued to gain on them, swerving back and forth across the road. Jess screamed as the truck pulled up dangerously close behind them, high beams flashing. "What do they want?" cried Sarah. "I think they want to run us off the road," Ryan said through gritted teeth, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. The menacing truck edged closer until it was nearly touching the SUV's back bumper. The teens could see two gruesome faces leering at them through the dusty windshield. It was the Hillbilly killers. Ryan weaved back and forth, trying to shake them off, but the truck stayed glued behind them. "We're not gonna make it!" Jess shrieked, hysterical. The pickup truck suddenly surged forward, slamming into their rear corner panel. The impact sent the SUV into a spin. Ryan fought to regain control, but the back wheels slid off the road, spewing dirt. The SUV careened down into a steep ditch, crashing into the rocky creek bed below. For a moment, everything went black. Jess's screams echoed through the night. Sarah cried out in agony, her leg trapped beneath the twisted metal. Gasoline poured from the ruptured tank in a dark pool around them. The teens were jarred back to their senses by approaching footsteps. They looked up in horror to see the mangled SUV surrounded by the Hillbilly killers. The murderous mountain men whooped and hollered, raising their weapons in the air. Ryan desperately tried to restart the stalled engine to no avail. Mike shoved open his door and helped pull the others from the wreckage. "Run!" he yelled, as the bloodthirsty gang closed in. The terrified teens took off in frantic escape once more, but with Sarah's bum ankle and Jess's trembling panic, they were slowed down within moments. The ruthless mountain men easily overtook them. Mike spun around to face their stalkers head on. If this was the end, he was going to go down fighting. Ryan and Tyler flanked him bravely. The savage hillbillies moved toward them with hungry, wild eyes, reflecting the flames now engulfing the SUV. Mike landed a solid punch on the first contorted face. Bones crunched beneath his fist before he was taken down by the snarling horde. The girls huddled together, helpless and screaming, as the first unearthly wails cut through the night. Then a barrage of gunfire split the air. Mountain people bodies hit the ground with a sickening thud. The teens looked up astonished to see state troopers arriving on the scene, weapons drawn. It was the police! The lawmen had been patrolling the highway and spotted suspicious activity. They chased the sinister hillbillies down and apprehended the remaining murderers. As survivors gave statements, the troopers revealed a task force had been assembled to track the notorious clan. There were warrants out for illegal moonshine operations, robbery, and disappearances in the area. It seemed the teens were not the first travelers to have a run-in with the sadistic mountain gang, but thanks to their escape, the reign of backwoods terror was finally at an end. In the glow of the burning SUV, the relieved yet shaken group embraced gratefully. By some miracle, they had all made it out alive. As the ambulances arrived to rush the injured teens to the hospital, the police confiscated bags of bloody instruments and human remains from the hillbillies' truck. The sun broke over the horizon, welcoming the teens back to the land of the living. As they looked ahead to brighter days, now that the lingering threat of the mountain men had been extinguished for good. They had survived the most harrowing night of their young lives, but the chilling memories would haunt their dreams forever after. Darkness lurks in wooded hollows where sun don't shine. Best stick to the trail lest you end up on the menu next time. There are sinister and dangerous people hidden in remote places far from civilization. It's wise to be cautious when venturing off the beaten path into the wilderness, because you never know what evil you may unwittingly encounter. This story serves as a cautionary tale, warning people to be vigilant about where they travel and who surrounds them, even on fun adventures like camping trips with friends. One wrong turn can quickly turn delight to plight if malevolent forces beyond your control set their sights upon you. But there is also a message of hope. that even in the darkest of hours and bleakest of circumstances, remaining united and determined can lead one to safety again. Overall, it is a reminder that we must cherish each day and look out for one another, for malevolent danger can lurk just out of sight no matter where you are. Please like, share, and subscribe for more creepy tales from the netherworld. Thanks for your support. Until next time, sweet dreams.